Would you like to know the expression of a man? Well, join me on the Now Talk Show. The Now Talk Show is an intimate conversation with men to highlight the pivotal awakening from his past that has brought him from trials into triumph into the now. The Now Talk Show will be sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic. Please stay tuned. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are today. I would like to thank you for joining me on the next. I would like to invite you to thank you for joining me on the Now Talk Show. I am Dr. Nadine Wong. I am your host. Today we have another distinguished gentleman by the name of Mr. Dale McFarlane. He has come to share the expression of his trials, how he has overcome in his triumph, and where he is in the now. The Now Talk Show is a safe platform for men to express themselves. The Now Talk Show is also sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic. So, without further ado, please help me welcome our distinguished gentleman for another exciting episode of the Now Talk Show, Mr. Dale McFarlane. Mr. Dale McFarlane, please come forward.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. It's an honor and pleasure to be here to share my story.
Well,
Um,
I'm so excited that you actually accepted our invitation. And I read your bio and the meat and potato of it. It's absolutely stimulating. And I can't wait for our guests, our audience, to dive in with us as you express yourself. So, again, thank you and welcome for
thank
being on the Now Talk Show.
thank you very much.
So, let's get right into it. So,
Mhm.
we want to know, who is Mr. Dale McFarlane? Tell us, how were you raised and what is your background?
Well, I was born on the beautiful island of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
Um, I have a beautiful heritage. My grandparents were from East India,
Uh-huh.
and so I have that rich culture to draw from. My great grandfather on my father's side was Scottish, so that's where the McFarlane comes from.
Okay.
Um, I was my mom and my dad. Um, their marriage didn't last very long, so I was out without a dad for since I was about a 1 years old.
Okay.
I never grew up with a dad. My grandparents took care of me for the first 15 years of my life until I migrated to Canada,
Mm-hmm.
where I became a citizen of Canada. And yeah, the first 15 years of my life was very difficult.
Okay.
Um, this is where not having a father, like I said, you become a prey to everyone
Mm.
that will take that opportunity to prey on you.
Okay.
And so from a very young age, I I learned the darker side of humanity
Okay.
in the form of I'm already diving deep into this. Um,
Take your time. Take your time.
yeah,
Time.
um, because the trauma overshadowed all like the little bit of good that was there. It overshadowed that. Like the trauma
Mm-hmm.
just took over my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't know. So yeah, I suffered a lot of abuse. But as the kid that I am, the person that I am, I
Mm-hmm.
continue to smile. I
Okay.
took it, and so you may not know that something was wrong, but you kind of had an idea. I was like this kid, like this,
Mm-hmm.
very shy, very timid, and I had to break out of that. Um, but yeah, I'm an only child for my mother and father. I know my dad. I've seen him and spoken to him a couple of times, but I never really had a strong relationship with him. The
Mm-hmm.
people that were there for me were my grandfather and my grandmother, and my mom had migrated to Canada long before I did. And so when I joined her here, then my life continued here. Um, I have a love for music. I have a love for carnival. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I would say it runs in my it. And most Trinidadians will say it's something that runs in their blood. but I love Carnival for the history of it. If you
Okay.
learn that it came from slavery, and
Hmm.
I remember the first time I played Carnival, I was on the streets of Port of Spain, and it was a freedom that I've never experienced before,
Okay.
and I was in tears just because I wasn't drunk or anything like that. It was just a beautiful moment where I felt I was connected.
Right.
The music and everyone, I felt as everyone was being one. We all
Hmm.
were one. It wasn't CEOs, it wasn't, you know, rich businessmen. No, we're all in costume, we were all in masquerade, and we were one. Dancing
Right.
to the same music, for
Hmm.
me, that was an understanding of what life should be. So
Right.
it hit me that way. And
Hmm.
so Carnival is a very spiritual thing for me, but I can have fun there as well. So
Well, carnival is definitely an expression of self.
yeah,
That the costumes are made in a particular to tell a particular story, and
right.
then the music, of course, it just blends everything well together.
Yeah.
But I would like us to get a little bit more in terms of as a child,
Hmm.
being an only child,
Yeah.
raised by your grandparents, you're in Trinidad.
Yeah.
What was life like? Were you in the rural area? Did you go to school there? Were you homeschooled? What was your favorite ice cream? Do you remember as a child?
Um,
Take
so
us to the childhood experience, and then we'll work our way up to the streets of Carnival.
right. So I only remember my grandparents because my dad left after a year, so I lived with them for the first 15 years of my life. So I only know them. And I went to school, locally, like everyone else. I did pretty good. It was a challenge because of the trauma. Um, it it was very public, and so I remember even sometimes where they won't let me come outside of the house because we had people uh, hiding around, say, a mango tree, looking to take my picture because it went public. Um, but
You're referring to the trauma you occurred. It
yeah,
went public.
it
Okay.
went public, and so it was very difficult. And some of the stuff, uh, it's it's just a feeling, and it's really to go back there. Sometimes it's really hurtful,
Okay.
and so I get the gist of it, and I just let it go. You know,
Hmm.
I'm learning to become more of an observer rather than absorbing things.
Okay. That's
Because when I,
powerful.
yeah, because I really believe this is one, and you'll hear me say this. This is my truth. Something that I've come to understand is my truth, and this is how I live my life. We are
Hmm.
in this world. We were supposed to be observers and not absorbers, because when we absorb things, we become ours. And you would see, even when I wrote my trauma, really not mine. I don't
Mm,
claim it. It
right.
I believe that everything happens for a reason, good and bad.
Hmm.
It was just there to create the man that I am today. Um, so going back to my childhood, my favorite ice cream is rum and raisin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, favorite ice cream. Even when I was a kid, favorite ice cream. I remember
Okay.
my mom. She was the only female in my family that actually worked, had a job outside of, the home. All the
Hmm.
other aunts and uncles, all the other aunts were housewives, but my
Hmm.
mom was the only one that actually went and worked in a factory. So I remember her after school. I heard this voice, and I, like, from a far distance, I look up. It's my mom chasing after me.
Hmm.
And when we got close, she goes, "I want to take you for ice cream." And I remember her just we taking a taxi, and she's taking me down to Marabella, where I used to live, and she would buy me ice cream. So it's one of my fun memories.
Wow.
And,
So are you a cone kind of person, or are you the person who gotta have it in the cup, or you like it dripping down your hands and
well, the cones are for summer.
oh, okay, okay,
Cones are summer. I like the bowl in the winter or fall. You know,
okay. All
less
right.
messy, less messy. Well,
Right.
messy, but but I mean, my childhood, it wasn't all that bad. It wasn't all that bad. But like I said, trauma has a way of clouding everything. you
Mm-hmm.
know. But when I do remember the good moments, I cherish them. I cherish
Mm-hmm.
them, and but the same as trauma, I don't absorb it.
Okay.
I never want to say that that part of my life was the happiest time of my life.
Mm-hmm.
No, I have now that I can create that happy. I can create more happy moments. But putting a label that was the happiest moment or that was the saddest moment, no.
Mm-hmm.
We every day we have this now moment to create whatever we put our minds to.
Okay.
And I choose to create a life of abundance, a life of being kind to myself and others,
Mm-hmm.
and regardless of what I went through. And that was a journey that took 7 years, actually, 7 years and more now, um, to come to an understanding of, even though bad things happen to us,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really change who we are inside if we don't allow it,
If we don't absorb it,
if we don't absorb it.
that's your words.
Right.
Yes.
If we don't absorb it, it shouldn't change that inner child. That inner child, which is someone I've learned to come to take care of now every day. I
Mm-hmm.
have a job. I take care of my inner child.
Right.
I wake up in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and I say, "What do you want to do today?"
Right.
And it might sound funny, but it's working for me.
And
Um,
that's the most important thing, that
yeah, it's working for me.
you found a formula that's
Yeah.
working for you, and that's just the overall law itself.
Hmm.
When you have the formula, you can only produce good things out of that.
Yeah.
So take us now. You've migrated to
Yeah.
Canada,
Yeah.
and you're Trinidadian. You're a Caribbean young man.
Yeah.
You're now thrust
Yep.
into Canada, where it's cold and it's frigid. And who welcomed you? Was it um, what family member, or how was that? What was that transition like?
Well, my mom had gotten married to my stepfather, which I unfortunately I lost him last year. But he had two sons that I grew up with, and he
Hmm.
had three daughters. I call them they're my stepsisters and stepbrothers, but they are my sisters and brothers.
Okay.
One of my eldest brother played a very important role in my healing.
Hmm.
He was the guy that it didn't matter what time of the night, and I was having a panic attack or anxiety attack, I would call him.
Hmm.
And but I'll get to that more. But yeah, I came to Canada. I went to, I would say, a rich school back then. That would have been 1986.
Okay.
It was Silverthorne Collegiate. It was a
Mm.
very, and I don't mean to sound, it was like a rich Caucasian school. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Let's
Hmm.
put it that way. Um, and then being from the Caribbean, I would say I had a tough schooling the first 2 years.
Hmm.
Um, you could count the amount of people of color in your hand, one
Right.
hand.
Hmm.
I remember being spit on the bus stop. I had people just didn't like me.
By
And
whom? Was it a child, an adult?
no, this is a high school. Some of
Hmm.
the kids, I don't want to label them, but I wasn't well received.
Okay.
Um, and so yeah, it was difficult the first 2 years of high school.
Okay.
I dealt with, once again, I was I was looking through the lens of trauma,
Mm.
and until we learn that that's what you're focused on,
Hmm.
until you start seeing the world differently, your world will always be trauma, a place from trauma.
Mm.
And that's a new revelation I had just recently, you know.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. And so I change the narrative. I change it every day. It's a daily work that I do with myself.
Hmm.
So yes, high school was very challenging the first 2 years, and then I got into myself, and
Hmm.
I won't say everything was better, but it was a little bit better. Um, I started working when I was 16 years old in the factory with my mom and my stepfather and stepbrother and stepsisters. We all worked there at some point of our lives, summer work. But
I understand it's a chocolate factory. Do you like chocolate?
no, I don't. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I don't like anything sweet, but I have my moments,
Okay.
and
Hmm.
that's why I actually don't keep sweets in my house. Like chop ice cream or anything like that because I would just devour it. And so
Okay.
I know my temptation, so I stay away from it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, I started working from a very young age, and I ended up staying there for 26 years.
Okay.
And I worked my way up to supervisor slash
Mm-hmm.
manager.
Mm-hmm.
And then the company had moved, and I decided not to go. And that was in 2015. And then I just took a year off and then went back to school and did social service work at Humber College.
Okay.
I just graduated last year, 2000, yeah.
So do you think the trauma that you occurred was a path that led you to the studies that you completed? What do you see a connection, or was there a connection, or was it just
Well,
how did you end up becoming or completing that program?
I lived my life where, because of my trauma, my family told me that it didn't happen. That so here I am, a little kid, endured all of this, but
Mm-hmm.
then they told me no, it didn't happen. So I lived my life where, even though I'm seeing stuff and experiencing stuff, I never trusted myself.
Okay.
I always needed somebody else's opinion. I always needed everybody else's validation, because I
Mm-hmm.
never learned to trust myself. It was my sister-in-law, Sue, and my friend Michelle Francis, two people that came to me and said, "I think you would be a good social worker." And I never thought of it. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Okay." And then I dug into it, and yeah, I signed up. It took two of them. It it took people to see inside of me what I didn't see in myself. And so they said, you're very soft. There's no judgment. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very very soft spoken, but very direct. And so yeah, they're the ones that put it in me. And
Mm-hmm.
the minute I stepped into it, I tell you, 2 weeks into it, I saw the change.
Right.
And it was when my when I had expressed a view, and my teachers said, "That's a good point."
Mm.
I had a voice.
Wow.
I recognized I had a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment on, I knew something was changing.
So you became your own therapist then. The
Uh,
curriculum.
yep.
The
Every,
curriculum.
yep.
Yes.
Everything that I learned, I applied to myself.
Right.
Everything. And I tell you, I'm not, I won't say that, I did social work to work in the field. I think I did it to heal myself.
Right.
I did it to heal myself. And it was life and the universe, guiding me that way.
Right.
And every day I'm grateful for it. Every day I'm grateful for it.
So you overcame your trials into your triumph
Yep.
by becoming a student.
Yes. Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
that is so powerful.
Yes.
So now that you've completed, you're in the field.
Mhm.
Did you, is it fair to say that the trauma that obviously you had to deal with and document, did you find that it was a lot easier to make the connection with the person?
Yeah.
Share a bit of the cases that you have overcome, or you actually worked with someone where you could identify even without them speaking or given the full story.
Yeah.
Share some of the cases that you've worked on that you could somewhat apply to yourself.
Well, I've noticed that because I was free to share my story, I wasn't ashamed of it, because
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing I did to deserve what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't hold guilt. I don't hold shame to it. And I just share my story.
Mm-hmm.
Bren Brown says, the motivational speaker, she says, it takes courage to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And I love that. I watch when I needed encouragement, I would watch her show. Her show is on Netflix, and I would watch it at least once a week
Okay.
when I needed that moment to find courage.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the strength in being vulnerable, because
Mm-hmm.
me being vulnerable, that was my truest self. That was me, not anybody I was pretending to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so with me being open to share with anyone and everyone that would listen to me,
Mm-hmm.
I had people tell me their story.
Mm-hmm.
They told me their story, and and all I can say is I understand. I understand. So I see that by opening up myself, I welcomed
Mm-hmm.
people that weren't able to talk about their trials.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need someone to identify with us. Like when I was going through the flashbacks,
Mm-hmm.
I felt so isolated. I felt so alone. Like I felt I was the only one going through this. I was the only one feeling this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I bottle it up because where do you share this? Where do you share what you're feeling in your head or in your
Right.
heart?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of things I just pulled away from my family
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't explain to them what I was feeling. And so they knew, but they gave me my space. And I
Right.
appreciated it. I know it worried them, but they they're people of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe we are never forsaken.
That's right.
Um,
Take a breath. Take a breath. I will pause right here to let our guests, our audience know that the Now Talk Show is sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic, where we specialize in clinical counseling, trichology, and integrative medicine. Should you know of another distinguished gentleman who would like to be a guest on our show, please have him connect with us at the Now Talk Show Dr. Well, Dr. N. Wong at gmail.com. And all the information is listing, it's flashing, it's going by at the bottom of the screen. We welcome men to share their story because we're a strong believer that the voice of a man shapes the world.
yeah,
Are you ready, Mr.
yeah,
McFarlane?
I'm ready.
The world awaits your voice. There's some shaping that is happening right now.
Yeah. Well, I think the misconception is that men, when we show our feelings, it's a sign of weakness.
Mm,
But there's something absolutely beautiful of a man showing that side of himself.
mm-hmm,
You know, uh, because to be a true man, you have to show that. You have to. You have
mm-hmm,
to. Um, and so after I graduated, I worked at a nursing, like a long-term care,
mm-hmm,
and I saw these elderly people. I developed such a relationship with them that I saw them for who they were, and just by smiling,
mm-hmm.
how it made a difference in their day.
Wow.
And so when I walked in I'm not a morning person, never was. But the minute I started working at a nursing home, the minute I walked in that door, there was a smile on my face,
Mm-hmm,
regardless of what I experienced the day before. You know, and so, but I saw the difference it made,
mm-hmm.
saw the difference it made. And so it encouraged me to be more kind
Right.
because I recognized that, or I should say, when I was in high school, I wanted to get into early childhood education.
Mm-hmm.
And, I did all the placements, I did all of that stuff. But then when I started to learn that people or folks like myself who had been molested, they have a higher chance of repeating that, and that scared me.
Mm-hmm.
It scared me. And so I got out of that field right away. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I stayed in a factory for 26 years because I was afraid. I was afraid to hurt someone.
Right.
I did not want to bring this kind of hurt on anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't have those feelings to do those things to children, I didn't want to give anybody the excuse or the reason to say, and so I just got out of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I love children. I would do anything for children, you know. It's one of
Mm-hmm.
those, you go to the extreme. You either become a molester yourself or you become a protector, and once I found my purpose in life. I
Mm-hmm.
can say that definitely I found it now,
Mm-hmm.
but it took the trauma. It took it, you know. And I believe I have a lot of truths that I believe in. This call, I believe, is a call from my ancestors.
Okay.
I believe this. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that, and this is where the Bible talks about generational curses.
Mm.
When our ancestors don't deal with their issues, it's passed on.
Intergenerational trauma. That's
Generational.
correct.
And
Yes.
so my trauma that I dealt with was
Mm-hmm.
generational.
Mm.
And I had a dream where I saw roots, how you see the roots of your family, but it
Yes.
came to me and it stopped. And
Mm-hmm.
I was sad about that dream until it was revealed to me.
Mm-hmm.
The curse stops with you. So this call to face my trauma was a call from my ancestors. And I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that's my truth
Okay.
because I'm healing them as well as my future generation.
Okay.
It ends with me. So that's
And
how I see
that
it.
that is very, very, very profound.
Mm.
Intergenerational trauma is what it's a silent killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we don't stay in relationship or within the soundness of our mind if we don't feel safe.
Right.
And trauma has a way of put you in a place of fear where you don't seek the safety or you don't see the safety.
Right.
So you're the next generation that comes out of you definitely will be getting a
Yeah.
person who is offering safety
Yes.
and not acting out of fear in a
Right.
place of trauma.
Yep. I'm giving you a clean slate.
A clean slate.
Clean slate. Yeah.
So from you came on
Hmm.
this broadcast, I have been drawn by this beautiful mosaic behind you. I know it has something to do with carnival.
Yes, it
So
does.
please tell me exactly what are we looking at here?
So this is a costume that I played carnival here in Trinidad this year, 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and it's from a story. It's a Ghanaian story, if I'm not mistaken. Anansi, the trickster spider, and
Oh
I think
yes.
This is the butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
and it was one of my favorite costumes ever
Mm-hmm.
to play
Mm-hmm.
because it had such a rich meaning, and for me, when I put on someone's costume, I
Mm-hmm.
hope I do it justice.
Okay.
I hope I do it justice. And so, as you can see, I redecorated my house, but the focal point was this. So I
Wow.
started with this, and then my house came into place after. But
So
yeah,
carnival is an expression.
yes, yes,
So you had, I mean, we're in the season of COVID.
yeah,
This was not a virtual carnival,
yeah,
correct?
yeah. This was just before the
The
shutdown.
shutdown.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was February. Yeah, we had
Okay.
carnival. Yeah. But I was there. This was supposed to be my last carnival. I knew it in my heart. I knew in my spirit this was my last carnival. I'm not even
Mm-hmm.
talking about COVID. It's just I felt like I got it out of my system.
Okay.
I did it for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I did Cayman Islands. I did Atlanta. I did Miami. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there was other countries I wish I did, but for me, it was enough. I
Mm-hmm.
like to experience stuff and not get attached to it.
Okay.
I like to experience and move on. And so when I was there, I said, my stepbrother said, "How was Carnival?" I said it was one of my best, and he goes, "What was different?"
Mm-hmm.
I said I was different because I enjoyed the now moment. I'm
Ah.
learning I'm learning to enjoy my moments now. When
Mm-hmm.
I'm with someone, I'm not on my phone. I'm with that person. I'm talking with you. I'm engaging with you
Mm-hmm.
because that's the only thing we have. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. We just have the moment.
Right now.
So I'm taking every opportunity now to enjoy it, to listen to myself, to listen to the
Mm-hmm.
universe, listen to God. I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking that moment, I'm at such peace.
Mm-hmm.
So Carnival for me, it's a spiritual thing. It's
Tell
very
me,
spirit. Yep.
so as a Jamaican, we have the rival
Yeah.
Jamaicans, we create Trinidadian, the history of reggae and stuff. What
Yeah.
is the history of carnival?
Well, the I Carnival, the one that we celebrated, it came from the slaves. The
Mm-hmm.
slaves would they only had the Catholics would have their parades, and it started right after Christmas till Ash Wednesday.
Okay.
And then but the slaves weren't allowed to take part in it.
Mm-hmm.
So then they were given just the Monday and Tuesday just before Ash Wednesday, where they can, celebrate. And
Right.
so the slaves would dress as the slave masters and parade on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
But it came with, violence.
Okay.
So we had to fight to have carnival. And so that's why I'm like, why do you have to fight to celebrate life? Why
Mm.
does one culture have to always put down another culture? It just didn't make sense to me. So that's why I love it. I love it because it endured all these years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's such a beautiful expression. You know, uh, there are some negatives to it, but I mean, in everything in life, there's always negatives, right? But for me, it's very spiritual. And it's a way for me once a year to put on a costume and be someone totally different.
So you have shared that it's very spiritual to you.
Mhm.
What is the connection with spirituality and putting on the costume and expressing yourself? Is there a connection?
Well, for me, the very first time like I said, I put on a costume. It's freedom. It's freedom and expression, and also it doesn't matter if you're a CEO or a rich man. Once you're on costume, you feel as one. You're dancing as one. You're dancing to the same music. You're part of a band, and so for me, the oneness was the connection. And I think that's, in my opinion, where the world needs to get back to that place of oneness where it's not you, it's not me, but it's us.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of the ego and come back to the oneness. There's too many divisions in this world,
Right.
and and boxed in, and one is against the other, but in reality we're all the same. We're all one. We're human. And the
Mm-hmm.
minute we start wishing bad things on people, I think that's where we lose our humanity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would say this: the people that cause my trauma,
Mm-hmm.
I do not have any anger to them, for them, or towards them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not an overnight thing. It
Oh,
took
for
a long
sure.
it took a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And last year when my stepfather was in the hospital, I didn't visit him much because I'm an empath, and I pick up on people's feelings and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know, and I would take it on as my own. So when I went to the hospital, I would just come home and I'd be just absolutely drained. But I remember coming home one day, and I felt my stepfather, and I felt how tired he was. I felt my mother and my stepbrother, how just exhausted they were. And I started to pray for them, but then I started to pray for the people that caused the trauma.
Wow.
And it wasn't, I'd say this, and this is just recently, um, that we talk about karma. And you would even look at my Facebook page, I would put karma is gonna get you.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned I learned about karma on a deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
Karma is like when I wish karma on someone, it's like me tying a rope to them and we're
Mm-hmm.
standing on a boat. So whatever happens to them happens to me.
Right.
So now this is where the Bible talks about praying for your enemy. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've changed it. I don't wish karma on anyone. So what
Mm-hmm.
I do now, my enemy gets a prayer that I would pray for myself. So my enemy, the people that cause my trauma, they get prayed that they live from abundance, they live happy, they live joyous, they live long, they live fruitful. But it took me a long time to get to that place.
Right.
Very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't wish not anymore. Like I said, every day that I'm living, I'm learning something new, and because I'm learning, I want to be a better person. I
Mm-hmm.
want to, I want to actually go back to my truest form, my truest, that truest expression of myself. I
Mm-hmm.
come from a place of love.
Right.
God created me from a place of love.
That's right.
I'm going back to that place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going back to that place. All the stuff that happened to me
Mm-hmm.
was well, like it was to get rid of all those traumas that was passed down.
Right.
We can't be you can't be somebody rubbing you the wrong way. You can't shy away from that because that rubbing is what's going to polish you, right? You can't. And so I've actually stopped judging people when they say things to me. When somebody else upsets me, I don't get upset of who said it. I listen to why it upset me, because
Right.
there's obviously something inside of me
A trigger.
that's resonating with what they said. And I
Mm-hmm.
and so everything now, I've actually turned it away from looking at everybody, and I'm looking at
Mm-hmm.
myself.
So you have now learned to identify the triggers
Yeah,
and disassociate them before
yeah,
they become active and create a reaction.
right. And I've gotten rid of my anxiety. I used to suffer from anxiety. I've driven myself to the hospital so many times,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I always thought I was having a heart attack. But
Mm-hmm.
once I realized my anxiety was just my inner side, my inner child trying to get my attention.
Right.
He was just trying to get my attention. I don't have an anxiety anymore, because then when the anxiety comes on, I stay still
Mm-hmm.
and I ask myself, what are you trying to say?
Right.
What are you trying to say to me?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to bring my attention to? So I turn my focus just on me now. I become a hermit, because that's what I need to do to heal myself.
Right.
If you think of a butterfly, before it becomes a butterfly, it needs to cocoon,
Cocoon. Yes.
and it needs to, like, turn itself inside out and melt itself
Mm-hmm.
in order to become a beautiful butterfly. And
That's right.
I had to go through that process, and it was very ugly. It was
Mm-hmm.
very ugly. It's
Mm-hmm.
and I hesitate sharing it. Not not to say that this is the process, but this was my process.
Right.
I went through a period of being addicted to drugs,
Mm-hmm.
but every time I'm high or coming down from a high, I always prayed that this that I know better,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm taking the judgment out of it, because it was through that the mental walls were broken down.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm not promoting drugs, but that
Mm-hmm.
was just my process, because I had all these like, I had the way I thought hammered into me.
Mm-hmm.
I was locked in bathrooms. I was tied to a fence all day without food. They tried to kill me, all because they didn't want me to speak the truth, and I was the liar. I have physical evidence that I was raped, you know, even up to this day. And I was in a hospital bleeding. How can a child lie? And I was maybe, what, 7, 8 years old?
Right.
Why would a child lie about that? But
Mm-hmm.
to protect their sons, I had to be the liar. And then so they had to silence me, and that's the way they did. I don't hold judgment to them. They did the best that they could.
Mm-hmm.
I look at life like this: those folks as props. Whatever happened to me was supposed to happen to me. Did I deserve it? No. But it was supposed to happen to me. So it didn't matter who played those roles, it was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to happen. You're just a prop. And so that made it easier for me to forgive, for me,
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
I do not, they, those family are no longer in my life
Mm-hmm.
because I chose them. They're no longer in my life because I chose for them not to be in my life, because
Mm-hmm.
they're still in denial. I'm not asking for anything. I don't want revenge. I don't want money. I don't want anything. I just need to move on. I remember the first day when I had my flashback. It was a Sunday night into a Monday morning, and I
Mm-hmm.
sat on the couch, and everything just came flooding through.
Mm.
And I called my mother, and I started telling her. I said, I need you to be honest with me, and I started explaining what I saw and what I remember. And she goes,
Right.
it didn't happen. And I'm like, yes, it did. And she said, maybe it was when when she lived in Canada, I was in Trinidad. I said, that's it. And I remember I said, I have to come to the house. I need to be surrounded by people right now because I live alone.
Right.
And I remember putting on my shoes, and I just started to cry.
Mm.
I cried, and I remember just saying, thank you, God, because it explained me. It explained why I was so angry all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It explained why I just never felt like I belonged. It explained me. Something an answer I was been looking for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, I was so grateful, and yeah, tears were running in my eyes, and it was a turning moment, turning moment.
So you had a good support team at this point.
Yes.
So who at this point stepped in to support you?
My greatest supporter is my older stepbrother, Shem.
Okay.
He has been and still is, the person I can call to. And I was telling him everything. He knows more than anybody else
Okay.
because I have that trust with him.
Mm-hmm.
I have that. And he would just say, I believe you. That's all he would say. I believe you. Because I would find myself questioning my sanity. I
Mm-hmm.
find myself questioning my reality because there's nothing wrong with you. And if I didn't have that, I don't know where I would be. The doctors wanted to put me on medication to deal with my anxiety, deal with my depression. I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's not for me. It might be for someone else, but it's not for me. I
Mm-hmm.
know who I am. I know. And in all of this, this is one thing I would say. I never said to God in a prayer or out of hate,
Mm-hmm.
why me? Why did this happen? I knew everything was for a purpose. Everything was for a purpose. And that's how I saw. And so that's why I find that it's, I won't say easier, but it's easier. It's
It
easier.
is.
It's
It
easier
is. It
when you
is.
look at it that way, you know,
Yes. It depends on how you view it.
how you view
And
it.
and again, it comes back to one of the things we've shared. When you understand the formula, then you
Yeah,
will know for sure you will get the result.
right.
And it is. And as I listen to you share, the thing that just stands out is you just wanted to be safe, feel
That's it.
safe.
That's it.
So here's the question that I will ask you based
Sure.
on that.
Sure.
What would you tell your younger self today based on what you've overcome?
Mm.
What would you tell your 5-year old, perhaps 5 to 7? Most childhood trauma happen in that age between 3, 5, or it could be younger. So what would you tell yourself, your younger self?
Yeah. Um, this is an exercise I had to do
Mhm.
when I was in crisis. I remember one of my professors says, you need to get down to the gatehouse, which was,
Okay.
right next to my school, Humber College.
Hmm.
And she stayed on the phone, and she when I did two programs there, it's 14 weeks long. And it was for men. The first one was for men, and then it was co-ed, and it's about dealing with sexual abuse.
Hmm.
And the majority, the most time we spent on a topic was inner child.
Okay.
And one of the exercise was to picture yourself as a small child and you as an adult sitting next to them,
Mm. Okay.
and and have a conversation with them and ask
Hmm.
them, is there something you want to say to me?
Hmm.
And so what you said and what I pray, and when I have my nights, when I
Hmm.
have my nights where darkness is talking to me and
Okay.
I'm scared, I tell that little child, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to have to go through a lot of hardship, but you're going to be okay.
Hmm.
You know, I was lucky that I survived.
Right.
There are a lot of kids that don't survive.
Hmm.
They end up, it's tragic. But I say this, I have to believe this.
Hmm.
I have to believe this. God never forsakes.
No, he doesn't.
In this life, yeah, we might die, but I believe it works out.
Hmm.
It works out. Everything, it works out. And if you, and I won't say if you trust or you believe, no, life works out. It works out. And it
Hmm.
works out just the way it's supposed to. And that's difficult to say when you lose a loved one
Hmm.
in a tragic way. It's really difficult to say that. But if you look at it from a higher perspective, from
Right.
a spiritual level,
Hmm.
everything works out. Because it's not just this human form you're living. You're a great soul having an experience.
Hmm.
And everything is for that greater soul's uh, evolvement, being evolved. So
Hmm.
this soul is having and we're right now having a physical experience. So
Hmm.
everything that's happening, yes, it hurts on a physical level, but you're safe. You're a higher being having an experience.
There's a lovely scripture that says, that though you go through, uh, though you go through the Lord chasten you, he will not leave you to dead. He will not let you die.
No.
He would
Yeah.
not let you die. So
No.
it's just to tap into that word. And you have, in
Yeah.
terms of, no matter what, I still see
Yeah.
the silver lining. I
Yeah.
must connect with it.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. This physical
we're
body has to die. This physical body has to die.
yes,
But your soul lives on.
right.
Soul lives on, and that's the most important, So yeah, that's it.
What you have shared is, I know, has helped, and because this is a program that persons can go in our archives and collect, you're healing, um, you're healing another gentleman to come
Yeah.
forward,
Yeah.
because you said it best. Men, half the time, they don't express themselves, they keep it in.
Yeah.
And then it manifests in some symptomology of behavior, more likely something aggressive.
Right.
And as a result of that, it plays out in relationship with their partner.
Yeah.
Are you presently single?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And I have been single, well, I would say all my life, and that's a choice.
Okay.
That's a
Why
choice.
is that why is that a choice? Not to have a partner to go through the process with you. Why would you prefer? Share with me why you're single.
Um, I don't want to ever say that I'm damaged, but I
Hmm.
carried a lot of baggage. Um, I had a huge issue with trust.
Okay.
Trauma trauma kept me in a cycle of mistrust, like not trusting. It kept me in a cycle of everyone's out to hurt me. Although they're nice to me, they still want to hurt me. So
Hmm.
I really couldn't, like, you put me in a church, and
Hmm.
after a while, that trauma that's inside of me that I've attached to,
Hmm.
I will put characters. This narrative has to fit how I
Hmm.
feel.
Right.
And so until I got rid of what was inside of me,
Hmm.
then I saw the world. Just, it was just from a place of trauma
Hmm.
until I let go. And this is a lesson where Jesus is trying to teach the rich man. When he
Hmm.
said, I want to follow you, but he goes, follow the commandments. And he said, I do that. And he goes, well, Jesus already knew that the man was a rich man, and these things meant to him. And he said,
Right.
well, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. He
Right.
couldn't do it. It's not because a Christian can't be rich to be a Christian. No,
Hmm.
it's the attachment you have.
Exactly.
It's the attachment that you have, that these things identify who you are.
Hmm.
No.
I'm going to stop you right there and ask you to repeat just that.
Yeah.
Because that right there, you should brand it. You should point it.
Yeah.
You put it in neon light because it's so profound.
Yeah. Yeah.
So please
Yeah.
repeat what you just said.
Yeah. Attachment. We've learned to attach to things,
Right.
and so we attach trauma. We attach like, that's mine. That's my trauma because it's comfortable. That's all we know. You
Hmm.
would see when you live. Sorry, I'm gone off.
No, no,
But
we're going to come back.
we
It's
can come back.
okay.
Yeah, it's one of those where, and I look at it as energy. We start
Hmm.
when trauma makes us vibrate at a lower vibration where we attract.
Hmm.
Um, you attract all these, partners that treat you the way you feel like, and from someone who suffered trauma, I felt like I wasn't worthy of love,
Right.
to give or receive. I wasn't worthy of being accomplishing anything.
Hmm.
That's something I actually felt, and I received it as my truth,
Hmm.
but not knowing that
Hmm.
that's how I felt, until I started loving myself,
Ah,
standing in front of a mirror. And this might sound funny, bare
no,
naked, bare naked.
that's exactly what I share with my patient to do.
Yeah,
So
stand in
you're
front,
connecting.
yeah,
Yes.
stand in front of a mirror, bare naked, and forgetting what society has conditioned us to judge ourselves.
Hmm.
We don't, whatever. We don't look a certain way. We don't want. No, just love yourself.
That's right.
Love yourself daily, and
Hmm.
put yourself first. My greatest thing was building healthy barriers and boundaries.
Hmm.
I stand up for myself. I
Hmm.
don't allow people to speak into my life. You know, if you're going to speak into my life, it better not be negative. because I will stand up to it.
That's
Because
good.
it took me a very long time to climb out of that negative mentality that I had.
Hmm.
And I will not allow anyone to project theirs onto me anymore. And
That is
so,
powerful.
yeah, so I've actually seen a lot of people drop out of my life
Hmm.
naturally. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
So there is a young lady
that. Hmm.
who you have fancied. She is patiently waiting for
Okay.
you.
Okay.
How would you go about approaching her
Well,
in terms of sharing where you're coming from? You describe it as baggage because everybody has a story.
yeah. Yeah.
So you're entering a new relationship. How would you connect with this lady when you're ready to
Well,
start the relationship?
I believe love liberates.
Ah, okay.
Love liberates. If I were to have a partner,
Mm-hmm.
I don't own you,
Mm-hmm.
and I will give you the freedom to be yourself. I
Okay.
will give you the freedom to love yourself even more than, hopefully that you love yourself right now. Um, but I really believe I have all these things in my head that, when I do get a partner, it's going to be amazing. This person's going to be absolutely lucky. You know,
She's going to get the best of you.
uh, yeah. I mean, I feel that way,
Did you
and
know you're blushing?
I am. I, and and that's why I waited this long, and I'm
Good.
willing to wait a little bit longer
Mm-hmm.
because once you understand, and once I understand that this physical life, yes, it's just temporary. I mean,
Yes.
that what's important is my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm willing to wait. I
Right.
People tell, like, I have one or two friends, when I tell them I'm searching for more, and when I get the answer, sometimes it knocks me out for like a day or two, and
Right.
they're like, that's because you're taking on too much. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I give it to me. I love knowledge, I love wisdom, and I pray for them. But
Mm-hmm.
it comes at a price. It
Mm.
comes at a price, but I'm willing to pay it. And
Mm-hmm.
and 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 if you see my Instagram and if you see my Facebook, my brother calls me the postmaster.
Okay.
On my Instagram, I have over 5,000 posts, and it's one of those. I just like to share information. I don't keep anything, and I get very passionate,
Mm-hmm.
and I see the need for healing. My professor in college that I absolutely adored, Professor Ramsey Taylor. She said when I sat down with each one of my professors
Mm-hmm.
to tell them to thank them
Mm-hmm.
because they were such great support for me.
Mm-hmm.
And she sat down and she was crying more than me, and I shared, but she started, and one of my posts on Facebook, I posted where she read, "Yea, do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death," and
Mm-hmm.
the way she spoke it into my life was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But she said to me, "Until the men heal themselves and take
Mm-hmm.
their place, their rightful place, this
Mm.
world will be unbalanced."
Oh, wow. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Please, 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 please.
Yeah.
We are coming up to the last minute.
Yeah.
And normally I will ask our guests, share with the audience
Yeah.
a takeaway.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
So
it.
you already started it. So please,
Yeah. Yeah.
please.
Until we find balance within ourselves, and until and this is one of my truth.
Mm-hmm.
I believe God is not somebody that exists outside of me.
Mm.
He's inside of me.
Right.
Everything that I need, He placed inside of me,
Mm-hmm.
and all I need to do is access it inside of me. I am the way to my own salvation. The kingdom of God is inside of me,
Mm-hmm.
and all I needed to do was heal that inner child,
Mm-hmm.
because that inner child is the core of who I am.
Right.
And that kid was damaged, and he was locked in a bathroom for the past 40 years until I saw him 2 months ago. And I
Mm-hmm.
went and I sat with him, and I made that bathroom that was cold and scary. I turned the light on, and I made it a place of love. So every time that I have my moments in the present time where I'm like scared or nervous, that inner child always goes back to that place. But now
Mhm.
I've made it a place that's warm
Mhm.
and bright. So it's no longer a place of fear for me. I
Mhm.
live with such peace now because
Mhm.
he's at peace. I take him
Mhm.
every single day with me. I go for walks every single day, or I go for a bike ride, and he's
Mhm.
with me. He's
Right.
enjoying the moment. I would
Mhm.
run out and I find a swing on one of my path, and I
Mhm.
go and I swing on it, and
Mhm.
that's that little child having fun.
And I'm
You know?
sure if you were to have rum and raisin ice cream,
Oh yeah,
you're sure there with you as well.
oh yeah, yeah. And one of my and I love rainy days.
Oh yes.
And so when it's a rainy day, I would open the garage and sit in the garage, and I
Mhm.
would say to him, "This is our favorite moment, rainy
Wow.
days."
Wow.
And so it's a daily thing that I do,
Right.
nurturing that inner child.
Mhm.
It was very important, and it was one of the turning points in my life,
Mhm.
realizing that I had to do more work with him until he merges with me.
Right.
That 8-year-old becomes one with this 49-year-old,
Mhm.
right? We had to become one. But I had to learn. I had to create a space where he trusted me,
Mhm.
and I had to love him,
Mhm.
and I had to show him that he is important and his voice is important. And so this is a 49-year-old, but it's a little kid sharing his story.
And that's the biggest voice.
Yeah.
Nobody cries as loud as a child.
Yep. Yep.
And that's the biggest voice.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I knew this interview would be uh, I knew it would be an awesome interview.
Yeah.
I would like to thank you so very much
Yeah.
for accepting our invitation and of course to being on the Now Talk Show. On
Thank you.
behalf of the team of the Now Talk Show, we want to say thank you again for coming and expressing yourself and sharing with us how you've overcome into the now. I would like to say to our guests, our audiences again, thank you so very much for giving us your time. The time is the most important thing that you can offer to anyone. And I thank you for giving us your time tonight on another episode of the Now Talk Show. The Now Talk Show is sponsored by the Alabaster Wellness Clinic, where we specialize in clinical counseling, trichology, and integrative medicine. Should you know of another distinguished gentleman that would like to share his story with us, we invite you to please email us at the Now Talk Show, the Now Talk Show dot drnwong at gmail.com. We thank you again for your time and good evening, good morning, and have a wonderful afternoon. And because we're in Canada, today's Thanksgiving. Happy, 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 happy Thanksgiving. We have so much to be thankful for just because we have life. Again, Mr. Dale McFarlane. I don't know. I was going to call you Pastor Dale. I don't know. I don't know. I was going to. Thank you again for joining us on
Yeah.
another episode of the Now Talk Show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me a voice.
Thank you again.